Okay, good morning everyone. This presentation is gonna be a demonstration on how to use ChatGPT in order to study, in order to prepare, and use it as a professional tutor. Okay, let me tell you something that is important to remember. ChatGPT is a software, it's a great software that uses artificial intelligence. Is not a reliable, totally reliable source. So we have to be very careful with the information that we obtain from ChatGPT. Okay, but at least gives us an idea of the how to study on different things that we can do from it. I created here, or I adapted, I didn't create, I adapted a prompt, okay, that I found somewhere. And this prompt says, you are a highly experienced human physiology teacher that has the ability to create simple step-by-step lessons on any subject. I want you to teach me clinical physiology one concept at a time. Give me short and engaging lessons to teach me the basics, building up to more advanced lessons over time. Don't just give me a list of information, explain the context and give me examples. Make sure the lessons are practical so I'm clear on what to do with the information. Do not repeat yourself, make each lesson different from previous ones, and after each lesson give me the option of moving on to the next lesson or doing a quiz. Don't give me a quiz unless I ask for it, and don't tell me the correct answers until I have responded to your questions. If I select the quiz, give me 5 questions based on the information you have taught to date. Give me feedback on my answers. If I get answers wrong, ask me if I want to recap the lesson that taught the information. Then carry on with the next lesson. And well, this is the prompt. Okay, then I added this part here to focus on Mendelian inheritance. And it says, let's begin with the lesson about Mendelian inheritance that covers autosomal dominant and recessive, X-linked recessive, and mitochondrial inheritance. Explain me how I can recognize in a family tree these inheritance patterns and what are the probabilities of having children that carry a mutation or manifest the phenotype. So asking for the genotype and phenotype. And the first lesson ChatGPT gives me is understanding Mendelian inheritance patterns. Okay, it gives me a brief explanation about what is the meaning of Mendelian inheritance and who was Gregor Mendel, the one who proposed this model. Okay, and tells us a little bit about what this means for genetics. Okay, as part of the lesson, it gives us some terminology: gene, allele, dominant, recessive, phenotype, genotype, so we can understand the language. And then enters into the different patterns. For example, autosomal dominant. Okay, it tells us that when a trait is inherited in an autosomal dominant pattern, it means that an affected individual, someone who inherits the mutation, has a 50% chance of passing the trait to its child, regardless of the child's gender or sex. Okay, because the trait, the mutation or trait, is linked to an allele on any of the 22 autosomal chromosomes. Okay, those chromosomes that are not the X or the Y. Okay, and the term dominant means that if the person inherits only one copy, right, the trait or the disease are going to be expressed, okay, can be expressed phenotypically, will manifest. Gives us the example of Huntington disease. Okay, and in a family tree, okay, we are gonna see the condition appearing in every generation. That's why it's called vertical inheritance. And it's gonna appear the same proportion of males and females. Remember, this autosomal means that it doesn't belong to the sex chromosome, so it's not sex related, the inheritance. On the contrary, the autosomal recessive will have a different family tree. It's gonna skip generations, because if someone inherits a mutation, they are not going to manifest the disease. They need to inherit 2 copies, one from each parent, in order to manifest the phenotype. So for the trait to be expressed in this autosomal recessive pattern, someone must inherit 2 copies of the recessive allele. Can be a trait, like color of the eyes, or can be a disease. Okay, if someone inherits only 1 copy, they are going to be carriers. Okay, they have a 25% chance of passing the trait, okay, to each child independently of the sex of the child. Then it moves to the X-linked recessive. Okay, now notice that this involves the X chromosome. The mutation is going to be there. Males only have 1 X chromosome, so they are going to be more frequently affected, because in the case of females, since they have 2 X chromosomes, okay, they are going to have a good copy. This is a recessive disease. Remember, we need to inherit 2 copies of the mutated allele. So in the case of females, if they inherit 1 copy, defective, they have another copy that is the normal. In the case of males, if they inherit only 1, they don't have the backup. Okay, so it's gonna be more frequent in males in a family tree. So it will appear more commonly in males. Okay, males are born typically to carrier mothers, because males inherit the X chromosome from the mother and the Y chromosome from the father. Okay, examples are hemophilia, color blindness. And the mitochondrial inheritance is very different. It's always inherited from the maternal side. Remember, the sperm cells don't contribute with mitochondria to the zygote during fecundation, fertilization of the oocyte. All the mitochondria, I would say most mitochondria, come from the maternal side. Okay, if there are mitochondria from the paternal side, there are very, very, very few. Okay, so the traits are passed from the mother to all children independently on their sex. Okay, all children, males, females, will inherit the maternal mitochondria. And there are some conditions that affect typically the eyes, the brain, skeletal muscles, tissues that require a great amount of energy. They need the mitochondrial function to be almost perfect. Okay, now notice that it clarifies these are very simple explanations. If you need to enter into more details about any of these patterns, you have to ask, okay, for more specificities in these lessons. So next, I asked ChatGPT to create a table that highlights the characteristics of these patterns. So I have these organized. Okay, there you have the patterns. Okay, also states is a simplified overview. If we need to enter, for example, if I want to know more about X-linked, or I need to ask, for example, oh, explain me X-linked dominant, will give me another lesson. Okay, explain me more about why this happens, why that happens, what is this disease about. It's gonna tell us. Okay, it's a quick reference. Now I requested a quiz. Notice that in this case, ChatGPT gave me 5 questions, but these are not multiple choice questions. Okay, so these are questions that you have to think a little bit and write an answer. Okay, if you want at this point, you can stop and copy paste the questions, or you can simply try to respond by yourselves, make a pause and try to solve these. Okay, here you have the answers that I gave. told me excellent work and gives me the rationale for this. Okay. Again, you can stop here, read the answers, read the feedback that ChatGPT gives me. Okay. The only problem that you can find here is that ChatGPT misses some important information, and it's very hard to know when you are starting your studies if something is missing. Okay, so if you see something that is not very clear, you can ask ChatGPT to clarify. Now, why ChatGPT gave me these type of questions and not multiple choice? Simply because I didn't clarify. If you go back to the prompt, okay, I told, give me 5 questions. I didn't say, give me 5 multiple choice questions. Okay, it's something that we have to learn how to interact with ChatGPT and try to make our interaction better, improve it every day, making more specific requests. So ChatGPT knows how to handle the material, how to handle the information, and how to give us this output. That is what we are looking for. So I included this prompt here. Could you create a quiz, but this time making it a multiple choice questions quiz? Absolutely. Okay, here you have a quiz with multiple choices. Okay, remember it's not gonna give you the answers at the beginning, so you have to read and try to come up with the answer. Okay, this is a very good way of testing yourselves. It's the only way you have to understand if you really got what you needed from the material you studied. Okay, and then once you have these questions, you can pause here and try to answer them. So what I recommend you before going to see the answers. Okay, just make a pause and try to answer yourselves. Do that effort. Try not to look into Google or ChatGPT or any other source. This effort, this little amount of time that we dedicate to try to solve this is very important to build pathways, to make connections in the brain, to strengthen and solidify those connections. This is what really, okay, produces what we call learning, okay, and long-term learning, which is what we need. So these are the answers I gave. Okay, it told me that there was a mistake in question 3. Let's see what happened. I put B. What is the probability of a child inheriting a trait in an autosomal recessive pattern if both parents are carriers? I put B. Okay, but if you go to the lecture, okay, you're gonna see that when this situation occurs, okay, actually the trait is inherited by only one, okay, because it's not who inherits or who is a carrier, okay, is simply who or what proportion of the children will inherit or will manifest the disease. Okay, they must receive a copy from both parents. So using the Punnett square, okay, only 1 out of 4, okay, will manifest the disease. Okay, I answered 50%, which is how many will be carriers. Okay, I'm not sure right now why I made this choice, or if I put wrong the option here, or I read it wrong. Okay, I did this some time ago, so right now I don't remember why. Something that is important as part of the learning process is trying to understand why we made the mistake. Sometimes because we don't read, sometimes because we don't understand, sometimes because we want to write A and write C or B, or okay, there can be many different causes. So let's move on. I said no thanks. Let's do another multiple choice quiz, including the concepts of allele, gene, autosomal. I ask what I want the quiz about. Okay, and this is the next quiz. Okay, if you want, you can make a pause and try to answer. Okay, and once you complete the quiz, you can move to see the answers. Okay, these are the ones that I gave. Okay, gave me fantastic. You've answered everything correctly, and gives me the feedback. Okay, in every of these dialogues or these messages, you can make us a pause. Okay, so you can try to understand what's going on here, why the correct answer is the correct. And if you made a mistake, try to understand why you made a mistake. Now I requested another lecture. Let's have a lecture about cellular protein synthesis, DNA, RNA, ribosomes, gene expression regulation. And well, this is the lecture. Okay, cellular protein synthesis starts with a brief introduction, explains what is transcription, translation, RNA processing, gene expression regulation, okay, the control at the level of the transcription, then the post-transcriptional control, translational. Okay, and I requested a quiz. I'm gonna project the quiz, the entire quiz, so you can make a pause. Oh, answers are there, the ones that I gave. Make a pause here. Remember, try to answer without looking at any other source. This effort that you're making, trying to answer this, is what really works, okay, in generating long-term memory. So let's take a look at the answers here. Again, I'm gonna leave it here so you can make a pause and understand the rationale, okay, of these, or the explanations to these questions. Then I asked for another lesson, okay, characteristics of the genetic code, differences between DNA, RNA, and again gives me some characteristics of the genetic code. Okay, feel free to stop, to pause, and analyze, okay, compare the characteristics of the genetic code, okay, with the ones you have in the lecture, the books. Okay, here we have the differences between DNA and RNA. Again, you can pause and read the differences. You can take notes, copy, paste, okay, whatever you like. Okay, remember, I have read all these. I haven't found any important mistakes, but there could be. So this is not free of mistakes. Sometimes makes obvious mistakes. So we have to read all this with a critical mind all the time. So then I asked for a quiz. Here you have the quiz. I'm gonna give you the opportunity to pause here and do your job, trying to find or come up with the correct answer. And here we have the answers and the rationale. Okay, again, stop and or make a pause and try to see, okay, if the answers that you gave were correct or not. Next, I requested the lesson about genetic mutations. Okay, one good thing that ChatGPT has is it doesn't mind spelling errors. I love that, because when we are typing very fast, we do these type of mistakes. ChatGPT understands. That's great. It's one of the things that I love the most. So here we have the lesson. explains the concept of genetic mutation, okay, explains the different types of mutations, point mutations, insertions, deletions, chromosomal alterations, the effects that the mutations can have on organisms, and the role of mutations in evolution. Then I requested a quiz. I'm gonna do the same process, give you a chance to pause and try to answer the questions. And then let's move to see the answers here. Okay, these are the answers. Again, I'm giving you a chance to pause here to read and analyze if you answered correctly or not. And finally, I asked for a lesson about penetrance and expressivity, what they are. Okay, notice that these are two important concepts that explain why some people who have a mutation don't manifest the disease, or they may manifest the disease maybe when they are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, okay, depending on the what we call the penetrance of the disease, and why some people with the same disease or same mutation have milder or more severe symptoms. Okay, the severity of the disease may be different, and that is the expressivity. Okay, you have it here. These are things that are important to remember. Gives you one example. If only 70% of those that have the mutation show or manifest the disease, we say that the disease has 70% penetrance. And then a lesson about multifactorial inheritance. Okay, explaining that not everything in medicine is so simple as the genetic predisposition. There has to be an interaction between the environment and the genetics of the person, okay, for the diseases to manifest. Gives us some examples of diseases like Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancers, which are multifactorial. Okay, we may have predisposition to a cancer, but if we don't smoke, if we are not exposed to certain viruses, we are not going to develop that cancer. Then genetics versus environment. So I'm asking to go more in detail about these multifactorial inheritance. Give me examples of diseases that are more genetic and more environmental. Gives me primarily genetic diseases, primarily environmental diseases. So I'm asking ChatGPT to go deeper, explore deeper that topic. And what is the application that this Mendelian inheritance has nowadays? Because we know genetics is not everything. Some people say it is not the genetic code, but the zip code what determines disease. Okay, and we have to understand what is the usefulness that Mendelian inheritance, learning, studying Mendelian inheritance has for us. Okay, gives us a good explanation here that you can read. Okay, when you obtain this recording, okay, to make sure that what we are studying has application and it's not something of the past. We are not learning history of medicine. We are learning something that for real has application. Okay, and that was the end. I could have continued asking and doing quizzes, but I think this is enough for you simply to understand not only the basics of genetic inheritance and Mendelian patterns, but also how to use ChatGPT as a tutor for your studies. I hope you liked it. I hope you consider this useful. And if you have any feedback, please let me know. I would like to know how to improve this and if you have any ideas of how to make this better. See you later. Bye-bye.